Hey, welcome back into the live stream. Today we're going to dive into Ethereum, what is causing this flash crash, and what is the future of Ethereum? Has it hit the bottom? Do we see more pain before we see some gains? My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into TechPath. Let's get into it today. Obviously, Ethereum has kind of been on the front line of defense when it comes to cryptocurrencies. Over the past 24 hours, there's been quite a bit happening. We'll go through some of those things. We'll break down also some long-term sentiment. Remember, on our CPI data, we're now down into about a 4-week cycle, dropping, I think, what is that, about 12 different sentiment data points throughout each month. So I'll show you guys a little bit of that, give you a little bit of the news, and just in general, an overall view. Make sure and drop your questions in the sidebar, and then also make sure and smash the like, because this is one of the best ways that we get feedback from the audience on things you guys like to see. And of course, it's a way for us to help you guys to help the algorithm out. Let's get into our first tweet actually here that kind of identified something that was happening within the Ethereum chain. And the Ethereum beacon chain experienced a 7-block deep reorg about 2.5 hours. This was a 2.5 hour ago on the tweet itself. This shows that the current attestation strategy of nodes should be reconsidered to hopefully result in a more stable chain. And of course, this is by Martin, and this guy has a lot to do with the Gnosis DAO, which has been very active around this area, and he talks about Ethereum quite a bit. So in general, what they were trying to explain, or he's trying to explain here, was broken down in this story here from Decrypt. And it does a good job with just giving you guys kind of a breakdown. In essence, there was somewhat of a breach within it. In a reorg like this, it usually tries to splinter a chain, causing and in the state in which Ethereum is in right now, that could be problematic. So they talk about it here. The Ethereum beacon chain, which will be crucial to Ethereum's merge scheduled for later this year, experienced potentially a high-level security risk known as a blockchain reorg. And in the reorg, 7 blocks, the longest such reorg in years that have essentially hit this, they really kind of talk about this being a problem. And as we look at Ethereum in general, and one thing that I've talked about here on the show quite a bit is the slowness in which Ethereum's dev team has kind of addressed the evolution of Ethereum as a blockchain overall. And I think, it goes because of the way that Ethereum is organized. There is so much in the way of just not only proposals coming into the system, but also the number of devs that are working on it. But I think this has a lot more to it than not. The question is whether or not how they can address this before the merge occurs. So he noted it today kind of on that Twitter thread, saying it's evidence there's more work to be done ahead of the merge. This does show that the current, as I said, that they need to reconsider kind of the node structure of what was happening. And I think in hindsight, when you look at kind of the overall framework of Ethereum, and just full disclosure, it is my number one crypto asset that I invest in and have been invested in for quite a long time. So it is something that I believe in terms of the overall goal of what Ethereum brings to Web3 and cryptocurrency in general. I think in general, it still has a long, long life ahead of it. And the likelihood, as you'll see, just kind of the framework in which Ethereum is being used, I just don't necessarily see it definitely going away. And I definitely feel like once that the merge does occur, that we will see some pretty big moves in the direction of ETH. Tether launches a stablecoin pegged to the peso. This is all built on Ethereum, Tron, and Polygon. The fact that it's getting Ethereum into this, from a stablecoin aspect, I think is a really good framework. Remember that USDC is an ERC20 token. So there are a lot of known, processes that work very well with Ethereum as the baseline architecture of many of these tokens. So I think the fact that USDT is going in this direction, this was an announcement sent to Cointelegraph today. Tether mentioned that the token will have the MXNT ticker and will join Tether's roster of fiat-pegged stablecoins. That includes dollar-pegged USDT, euro-pegged Euro-T, and then the Chinese yuan-pegged CNHT. So this could be a good thing, I think, overall. And again, Tether I think overall, it's been holding on. Now, granted, this is me personally, I personally will jettison Tether for USDC anytime I get it. So if I'm getting USDT as a stablecoin, typically I'll convert that to USDC almost immediately. But when you look at, according to Tether's chief CTO, Paulo Ardino, the rise of crypto usage in Latin America, which I think is a good thing. This is definitely something we are seeing push their decision to expand. He also explained that the introduction of the stablecoin pegged to the peso will give Mexico a way to store value apart from this, which is what their kind of direction is. And I think this is something that we've reported on before. I've done a couple of videos on the international expansion, especially in these emerging markets like Mexico. Mexico is one of the countries that I think is very undervalued in the potentially adoption of where crypto is going to go. And the fact that Tether is moving this direction is, I think, a good sign, overall. There is some movement here from Cardano reaching another interoperability milestone. New Ethereum Cardano bridge goes live. This again did put a little bit of pressure on, Ethereum, which again these bridges give the ability to start to move large asset queues. And I think that is another factor that starts to see things like whale moves, which if you watch whale moves, and most of you, I'm pretty sure you do to a certain extent, you can actually get some data in there to kind of look at how sentiment is flowing on an asset. We see it all the time. Also, this whole issue, and I'll talk about this in a bit, this whole issue of Bitcoin versus ETH dominance. Now, there has been times in which ETH's dominance has been lower than it is today. But the fact that we're seeing such a fall off so quickly is what is a little bit concerning to me. The other big, obviously the big, elephant in the room is Vitalik. Now, of course, he is no longer a billionaire. Now he's, I think, worth like 600 million. We cut his wealth basically in half, obviously, because of Ethereum's position. But I think his whole position overall, when you look at where the growth and the potential for Ethereum is going, Vitalik has a much more, philanthropic view of how Ethereum should be contributing to Web3 and the blockchain ecosystem. I don't know that this is really an important thing for him. But this tells me that his mindset is right to really kind of accelerate on the merge. And I think that's really the big question mark right now, is getting to the merge. And that one is the one that I'm most concerned with. He also talks a little bit about this soulbound token. If you guys have not done a little research on this, I would take a look at this, because this is something we're going to look at. But essentially, the soulbound token is an attempt at trying to create some sort of identity threshold within Web3. And of course, Ethereum is going to play a big role of this. This could play into Web3 social applications, where in essence, think of it as KYC for your wallets and for your identity in Web3. And that's essentially what Soulbound is designed and hoping to do. In terms of a blockchain in Web3, Buterin believes that Soulbound tokens have the potential to change the industry as they will be presented in the form of non-transferable tokens revocable by the issuer. Could be used to represent a commitment to real-world events and projects. And again, that gets back to my whole point, and I talk about this a lot, is this issue of when we see Web3, and remember that Web 2, Web 1, somewhat of an anonymity Wild West evolved, and that's also essentially where the dark web evolved from. We have grown closer and closer to identification, and I think that's going to be something that is going to happen in Web3. More so, I think, social might be the gateway to having that happen. Metaverse, to a certain extent, I think also might be another gateway that we start to see a lot more identification in the future of where that might go. Even though I think anonymity is important, and I think there are places for it. Obviously, that's where privacy tokens come into play, things of that nature. But overall, I think that's going to be something that we should be watching for quite some time. And then, of course, he goes on to talk about, to how this would be used to verify things like school, employment. And again, this goes back to the point I'm making, is that, to be able to get Web3 and the blockchain to really work in unison, the idea of ID is going to be a very important part of that. And if Ethereum is the backbone for this, then it could be a huge opportunity because at some case and at some point, that's going to be needed across almost everything you can imagine: banking, insurance, medical, just name the industry. And the likelihood of that kind of certification, so to speak, if it is riding within the Ethereum blockchain, is going to be huge. So a big one. Now, bad news is that you've got Ethereum taking on some challengers. And if you're an Ethereum maximalist and you believe that Ethereum is the only way to go, then you have to really kind of pay attention to who are the suitors that are trying to suck some of that wind out. And of course, one of them is Solana, as they overtake Ethereum in the daily NFT trading volume. This one actually surprised me a little bit. I was kind of taken back by this because I didn't anticipate Solana making a move on Ethereum before the merge. I felt like Ethereum had enough run on really kind of controlling what was happening in the NFT space. I think the difference is the NFT space has had such a fall off that we've seen a little bit of an opening for some of these chains to really kind of jump in here. Solana sales generated more than Ethereum's NFTs during the 24-hour span per data. This was on CryptoSlam. The newly launched Trippin' Ape was the one that kind of was the catalyst for this, and the tides are shifting in the NFT space of late. This is a high-value Ethereum NFT market has been sinking trading volume in the last couple of weeks, but Solana's NFTs are still growing. And over a 24-hour span, yesterday and into this morning, we saw them actually take the sword from the king. So I think it's interesting to see that happen before the merge, because as I said, I really felt like Ethereum had enough steam, even with a down NFT market, to really still kind of hold position. Now, don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of scenarios that push Ethereum to the top of the heap, and I'll show you some data here. But I think the other thing that you kind of have to pay attention to, this was in reference to permissionless. Ethereum's devs tip the merge will occur. Notice the term, will occur in August if everything goes to plan. So I think they're pretty confident that this is going to happen. This was on a tweet here by Benjamin Cohen. And he basically says, hey, listen, just said that ETH merge is ready. They're now only testing, expect the merge to happen in August. Packed room, this was at permissionless here in Florida. And a great question by Trust Estate. Also on the panel, you can kind of see some pretty heavy hitters. So I think the fact that they are this confident that August is the date, then I think we may see some opportunities here for Ethereum to kind of take back its thunder for sure. Starkware, of course, is continuing to kind of blow up as well. That's an ETH2 scaling developer, which announced it raised another $100 million, bringing its valuation to $8 billion. This one is going to be very important, I think, as we see the scalability of Ethereum, especially when the merge happens, because scale is going to be a key thing for a lot of different protocols that will attach and also work in unison with Ethereum. And if you look at just the people, Starkware raised $50 million in a Series C funding round. This is by Sequoia Capital. If you don't know who Sequoia Capital is, they're probably the premier, most well-known Silicon Valley VC group ever in the history of venture capital. And the fact that they're involved in this, I think, is a really good sign of where this might go. Their Series D was led by Green Oaks Capital, an investment management company as well. So you got Tiger Global in this. I mean, this is some serious moves in this space. So I feel like this is a very good sign, again, long-term, for where this might be going. Now, when you look at, as I said, some other suitors here, then you have to kind of take a look at this story, and that is large Ethereum whales accumulating Chainlink, Serum, and also a couple of other decentralized finance altcoins. On-chain data is showing this, and of course, if you look at this, it shows a little bit here on whale stats. Top 100 Ethereum whales are currently most interested in a pair of stablecoins and over half a dozen altcoins, with Chainlink in 6th place and seeing an average buy quite up. So there's a little chart here kind of showing you the ones that are most interested of the ETH wallets. So you got USDC in there, Serum, USDT, ETH, of course, and then Chainlink really jumping up a lot as well. And then you got Yearn Finance and even 1inch down in there as well. So that's where it gets into DeFi. So I think the fact that we are starting to see a little bit of activity in this, to me, that just tells me that the whales are getting impatient. they're looking for yields and gains, and it is causing some pressure because remember, a lot of these whales purchased Ethereum probably when it was under $200. So the kind of runs that they've seen over a period of time is quite different than the average Ethereum investor. So I think that's going to be the interesting thing to watch here. This is another, kind of component here. This, of course, coming from Kieran over at Illuvium. Only one brand in the blockchain that I consider ahead of Ethereum when it comes to the market dominance, and that's going to be Chainlink. So again, Chainlink, which, by the way, we just put Chainlink on our CPI. It wasn't necessarily because of this, but it was one of the things that we look in terms of tokenomics, the overall economy of what Chainlink represents, the dApps, and also just the framework in which Chainlink is presenting itself to the market, I think is a very interesting one. And that's kind of how we look at what we do in terms of adding tokens to the CPI. Just so you guys know, the CPI is our own internal tracking mechanism. You can subscribe to it. It's pretty simple. Hit the links below. It'll take you over to stuff like that. But again, make sure and hit the like button because this is, again, a way for us to really get feedback from you guys. Don't forget, we want your questions. We'll try to get to some of those here. Now, I'm going to get to where the sentiment trends are going on Ethereum and what this might be looking like as well. Let's jump to a poll real quick because I know we've got one coming up. Let's take a look here at the poll. All right, ETH will fall below 1K this year. 48% no. 40% on yes. Interesting. So, okay, so there are some things that are still pointing in a downward trend for Ethereum. Now, do we see 1800 as its new bottom is the question. I don't necessarily believe that this is the bottom for Ethereum, and I'll show you, some reasons for that, but there are a lot of indicators that are kind of pushing in this direction. I think, again, all things could be off. Remember, it's already coming up on June. And so essentially, if at best, you're 60 days away from a potential merge. And if there's more data and more information that comes out from the team and they actually hit the date, summer could get very interesting for Ethereum. So a good one for sure. And again, just to show you the dominance, if you look at DeFi Llama, here's Ethereum. I mean, look at this total value locked. You're at 69 billion in here versus 8 billion on Binance Chain. You've got 5 billion on Tron, Avalanche, of course, exploding up to 4 billion. And then, of course, Solana and Polygon. And again, remember, this is a lot because of Luna's departure, where we're seeing a lot of movement here for sure. Another thing, too, to be watching is the longs and the shorts. And if you look at this data mesh chart, they're showing, obviously current price. You got 168,000 longs currently on Ethereum, 103,000 shorts on Ethereum right now. So I think a lot of people are looking at the current price as being maybe a short-term dip here that may be an opportunity to kind of take it forward for sure. But there are some people still pointing in the direction that this is going to continue to see a little bit of pain. But again, Vitalik kind of just reiterates here on his own. Statement by Open Ethereum comes after the announcement from Vitalik. Transition to proof of stake will happen in August. So this is a big move for sure. Let's get into the ETH dominance in comparison to Bitcoin. So you've got Bitcoin really skyrocketing in dominance right here. Over the past few days, you can kind of see Bitcoin holding out at 46.23 right there. I can't really zoom in on these guys, sorry about that, but 46.23, if you are following this, you can of course do this very easily on TradingView. All you need to do is just search BTC.D and then maybe do a dual window and do ETH.D. That'll give you your comparisons right here. But if you look at Ethereum, let me kind of move things around a little bit. You see this big fall off right here. Again, maybe because of the activity, I think more so from wallets versus what we've seen in maybe this whole issue around the potential, situation, especially with, I won't necessarily call it a hack, but at least showing, remember though, showing that it's got some weakness. But remember, a lot of developers like this. This is one of the things that they actually seek out, is they need to learn from these things and they're looking for assistance in that. Not necessarily that was what was happening here. But if you look at Ethereum out over time, let's kind of zoom down a little bit just to give you a perspective of zooming out. So you can see it right here. ETH dominance holding at 18.8. But see, you've got a lower ETH dominance right here at 17%. This was back in early Jan. Then you've got this mark right here back in October. That was right after the big pump that we all saw. And then all the way to pre-pump, and you saw ETH dominance at around 11%, all the way back into March of 2021. Remember, that was pre-pump on Ethereum. So definitely we've seen darker times for Ethereum in general. And I think just in most cases, people are looking at Ethereum as a much more stable asset now. And I think that's why the dominant scenario, when you compare that to Bitcoin and maybe even to a certain extent, some of the other chains like Solana and maybe even Avalanche, you've got to look at where this is going. But again, Ethereum's still the beast in the room for sure. I want to get over to a couple of things here on our CPI, and I'll show you the ETH chart here. And this is our 1 month chart. So the thing to know if you're in the CPI, if you're a Crypto Power Index user, if you're not, you should join. It's very inexpensive. You get access. We drop, we drop 3 times a week. We also give you video inputs, a lot of my own personal trading habits, as well as inside strategies that I'm using all the time. But this is something that I'm very interested in right now, because remember, ETH right here holding in back in the end of April at around 70, which was not high, but at least considerably higher than where we are trading right now in terms of sentiment. The fact that we are still trending downward on sentiment overall, and this is something that I look at on the 30-day cycle, the overall trend line is what I'm more concerned with, especially on amplification. And amplification had a little bit of a trough right here when we saw another $1,800 price. I anticipate we're going to see amplification shift a little bit more over on Friday. Tomorrow we'll get another drop of CPI data, of power index data. And the likelihood of, again, seeing more pain really right now, continuing to shift, because right now the overall market is actually performing a little bit better than overall amplification. So based on this, what I'm trading is that I'm most likely going to see a little bit more pain in the Ethereum prices. So we're watching it very closely. Could be one of those things that could open up some opportunity if you are looking at trying to dollar cost average on Ethereum, long term. Let's get into some of the questions here. Fresh tuna, hopefully by August, the economy isn't tanking, or else I don't think ETH will do much. There's a lot of things that are happening with economic pressures right now. I think we're going to be in worse position in August. And I don't think, remember, when you look at trading cycles, if you're trading right now, you're looking maybe for short-term wins. But if you're looking long-term, really this summer and even this fall probably shouldn't matter to you that much if you're dollar cost averaging. Because the likelihood is you may be looking at a 3, 5, or even 7-year plan. And if you're looking in those ranges, none of this really matters other than making sure that you don't miss big window of opportunities for a DCA. So that's something to consider. But I don't know that we're going to see a little bit of uplift in the fall. All right, I said no, but 1,200, 1,400 is a real possibility. Thanks, David. I'm kind of with you in the sense that I think max pain is not here yet. Both for Bitcoin and for Ethereum. So there are going to be some window of opportunities. But again, don't forget, there's also going to be some little moves up. So this isn't all down. You're going to see those little ebb and flows. You go 1,800 right now, you might see a 17, and then all of a sudden ETH's at 22. So you have to be ready for those kind of plays. And if you are swing trading, that's a great opportunity for you as well. Here we go, Mayo. NFT people won't let ETH price go below 1,500. Again, that will be a scenario based on where NFTs are trading. Even though the NFT community is trying to fend that off, I still am seeing overall dropping. What we should probably do is I'm going to do a comparison for you guys on where the NFT architectures are going. There's a couple of tools that we use. In fact, I'm going to do one for you on the Diamond Circle and in the CPI trading, because it's a good vehicle to compare to, especially around Ethereum pricing. Rajesh, let's go in. Will Solana be a better investment for the next 2 to 3 years versus ETH? That's a good question. ETH is further along on obtaining critical mass because of the merge. Solana has a lot of upside, but yet still very young. So growth-wise, the likelihood in terms of X percentage of growth, Solana would probably be the better win for you. Again, not investment advice. We'll do these market movers. We jump in, we'll give you a bunch of data. We give you our own CPI data, but not investment advice. Hopefully it's just getting you in the right direction. But how I look at it from my point of view and how I trade it is I buy both tokens, but I'm more in ETH than anything, mainly kind of like more of a stable asset, even though right now there's nothing stable out there. Real estate's starting to fall. We're seeing obviously blood like crazy in traditional stocks. The only thing I think we're going to start to see is, long-term treasury make a move at it as well. But it'll be interesting. But Solana I'm still betting on Solana. Still do think there's a good opportunity there with Solana. Aristo, what about AVAX? AVAX is one that I trade in and out of. I just bought some today, full disclosure. Just bought a bunch of AVAX today, and just because the price, when you're in the $20 range, that was the last time that I bought AVAX, was in at $14, and we rode it up to over $100, and it was really a great opportunity. We've had AVAX on the show. We've actually invited them back on the show here recently. They have a lot going on, but at the same time, we want to get them back on because they've got some other things happening that are very interesting in the NFT space and in the gaming space. So that's why I do like AVAX. If ETH goes below 1K, NFTs will drop like flies. Yes, absolutely, Iman. If it goes below 1K, that's going to be blood in the market for Bitcoin. I think the entire market would be in some pretty dire straits of ETH, because I feel like ETH is one of those stable assets, in comparison to what is stable today. Definitely not one of those that's, bloodletting like what we've seen with, look at AVAX. Look at the fall of AVAX and where its value is right now. A good example. But remember, there's a lot of opportunities to get into some of these at places that we've never seen them before. And if you are long-term thinking, then there's an opportunity there. But always remember, some of these projects, including some of these premium projects, could go to zero. Never forget that. Let's go here. I was surprised to find that CPI subscription cannot be paid with crypto. Man, we would love to do this. It is not us, but the clunkiness of the platforms that are available out there to manage subscriptions, do not take it. I won't name names, but if you guys know of a platform right now, the reason is that we have to be able to import a lot of data to be able to give you those nice, cool graphs. And there's only a handful of platforms that can handle that kind of data ingestion. So, and the ones that we've chosen, unfortunately, do not take it. However, they tell us that they are going to make that available soon. Any kind. I'm just like, we'll take anything. USDC, Tether, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano. We may figure out a way to do that, manually, just for those who want to do it. The problem is it gets more manual for us, for our admin team, and that's a little harder. All right, so Delta, Paula, what number are you starting to DCA on ETH? I started buying ETH today. Again, I bought ETH at about 2,300 down to where I am right now, and I'm continuing to purchase it. I did buy a big bag today, so I'm still looking for another drop and I do think we're going to see it. Is Cosmos a real competitor? Cosmos, we've had a couple of videos on Cosmos, and we really dive into Atom as a whole. It is another token that I hold personally. I do like the project, and it's also one that's in our CPI that we track constantly. So a good one. Jeff, let's get to you. If ETH drops below, honestly might be the last time to get in anywhere close to that price. I'm here for the long term. Don't worry, crypto is here to stay. I agree with you, my man. Until 2040, that's my retirement date. You guys that's good. Retirement, 2040. So we got another, 18 years together, I guess. Cryptonaire, let's get up there. That one was fast. Miss you. What's up, Paul? Here, do you see this market as a whole in terms of direction? Would you DCA or buy in bulk? Right now, for me, there's first of all a lot of dry powder. I've been kind of stacking on the side as I've exited some projects over the last 6 months. Took some profits in late last year. Sold some junk before tax season to take my tax loss harvesting. So there's a lot of strategies that I was in the middle of doing, and now I'm looking at rebalancing my portfolio. And again, as I said, I'm a little bit over leveraged, not leveraged, but overexposed on Ethereum right now just because I have so much of it. So even though I am dollar cost averaging, I'm trying to lift my averages on other tokens and other asset classes to kind of help with that whole approach. Crypto Cyclops, thanks for the super chat. Still keep an eye on Proton. They're doing some cool stuff. I haven't looked at that project, so I don't know about it, but we'll look into it. You know, you never know. There's so many projects out there that, and some of them are really great. You know, it's just that, you know, if you don't get a lot of press or you don't have a lot of transaction volume, it doesn't really make the show because we're mostly working with, you know, people that are really focused in on some of these top 50 and or these fast emerging projects like a Steppen or Gala or something like that, that's really moving heavily. How to properly DCA in your opinion? All right, so we had a show on this and it explains it. In short, go watch the video, but in short, my idea of dollar cost averaging is not to dollar cost average blindly. You're looking for key indicators. And there's some ways in that show, in that episode, there's key indicators that we provided to you in that episode. It's about 3 or 4 episodes earlier. It's on our channel right now. And I use that, and it's been very effective in keeping my some of my token prices down low. It's also hurt me in some cases because it's brought token prices up because I purchased tokens at such a low price. But overall, my theory, and I've proved it out many times, is that don't blindly dollar cost average. A lot of people will just say, hey, just do it every Monday and that kind of thing. Not really. I'm more in the vein of strategic dollar cost averaging. Look for indicators, buy those dips when they are true dips. Don't get faked into a dip that ends up just being a light little, you know, move, and then you get kind of swankied into a further dip. That's a problem, I think, overall that a lot of people face. So just watch that video. It'll tell you guys and give you guys a lot more insights on dollar cost averaging overall. Lots definitely happening out there. Don't forget, hit the Twitter account because it's always, man, always good. I read all your tweets right here. Here's one from Wayne Miller. He has a good idea on a video too that I'm thinking about doing. I want to buy some crypto every month for my girlfriend's daughter. She's 7. Good for you. So this would be a long-term investment. Can you do a show on ways to do that? Thanks. You have the best info on YouTube. Of course, man. Thank you so much. We do take a lot of your feedback from Twitter, from your comments below. When you're hitting likes, we register how many likes hit a video. So it tells us, you know, kind of the vein of our research, what we'll dive into deeper. If there's topics, there's heat maps in our videos where we watch how well you're tracking. So we're paying attention to a lot of your input, even if you're doing it, you know, kind of somewhat in a passive way. We'll watch how you're reacting to content because it really drives our direction in terms of research and providing you guys the best research content and data that we can out there. So make sure, of course, if you're listening in over on the podcast right now, you got to jump over here to the YouTube channel and subscribe. If you're watching this right now and you're not on the subscribe button, this is the way you're going to get the live shows just like this one dropping in and giving you a notification. And it's also a good way to jump into the Diamond Circle, which is absolutely free. And we drop a couple of emails a week, all kinds of cool stuff out there. If you want to reach me, as I said, hit me up on Twitter. We'll see you next time right here on TechPath.